again, and welcome back to the Story Shack with me, Kath, and Sloppy the rabbit. And today we have a story from Scotland, so I hope you enjoy it. It's called The Man Without a Heart. Once upon a time there were 7 brothers who had no mum or dad and no sisters either, and this meant that they had to do all of their own housework, which they did not like at all. So after much deliberation, they all decided that they needed to get married. There were, unfortunately, no young girls to be found in their village, but the elder brothers agreed to go out into the world and seek for brides, promising to bring back a very pretty wife for the youngest if he would stay at home and take care of the house. So he agreed, and the 6 young men set off in good spirits. On their way, they came to a small cottage standing quite by itself in the woods, and before the door stood an old man who accosted the brothers, saying, "Hello, you young fellows! Where are you off to so fast and so cheerily?" "We're going to find bonny brides for ourselves and one for our youngest brother at home," they replied. "Oh, dear youths," said the old man, "I am so terribly lonely here. Pray bring a bride for me also. Only remember, she must be young and pretty." "Oh, what does a shrivelled old grey thing like that want with a pretty young bride?" thought the brothers, and they went on their way. Presently they came to a town where there were 7 sisters, as young and as lovely as anyone could wish. Each brother chose one, and the youngest they kept for their brother at home. And then the whole party set out on the return journey, and again their path led through the wood and past the old man's cottage. And there he stood before the door, and he cried, "Oh, fine fellows, what a charming bride you brought me." "She's not for you," said the young men. "She's for our youngest brother, as we promised." "What?" said the old man. "Promised? I'll make you eat your promises." And with that he took out his magic wand, and murmuring a charm, he touched both brothers and sisters, and immediately they were all turned into grey stones. Only the younger sister he had not bewitched, and he took her into the cottage to keep house for him. She was not very unhappy, but one troubled thought occurred to her. What if the old man should die and leave her here alone in the cottage, deep in the heart of the wood? She would be as terribly lonely as he had been. So one day she told him about her fears. "Oh, don't be anxious," he said. "You need neither fear my death nor desire it, for I have no heart. However, if I should die, you will find my wand above the door, and with it you can set free your sisters and their men, and then you will surely have company enough." "Well, where in the world do you keep your heart, if not in your chest?" asked the girl. "Oh, do you want to know everything?" her husband said. "Well, if you must know, my heart is in the bed cover." And when the old man had gone out, his bride passed her time in embroidering beautiful flowers on the bed quilt to make his heart happy. The old man was much amused. He laughed and he said to her, "Oh, you are a good child, but I was only joking. My heart's really in now, where is it, dear husband?" "Well, it's in the doorway," he replied. So the next day, while he was out, the girl decorated the door with beautiful feathers and fresh flowers and hung garlands all around it. And on his return, the old fellow asked what it all meant. "Well, I did it to show my love for your heart," said the girl. And again the old man just smiled, saying, "You are a very dear child, but my heart is not in the doorway." And then the poor young bride was very vexed, and she said, "Oh dear, you really must have a heart somewhere. What if you die and leave me all alone?" And she begged and begged and begged him to tell her the truth about his heart, and at last he told her. "Far, far from here," he said, "in a lonely spot stands a great church, as old can be. Its doors are of iron, and round it runs a deep moat spanned by no bridge. And within that church is a bird which flies up and down, up and down. It never eats, it never drinks, and it never dies. No one can catch it, and while that bird lives, so shall I, for in it is my heart." Well, it made the little bride quite sad to think she could do nothing to show her love for the old man's heart. She used to think about it as she sat all alone during the long days, for her husband was almost always out. One day, a young traveller came past the house, and seeing such a pretty girl, he wished her good day, and she returned his greeting. And as he drew near, she asked him where he came from and where he was going. "Alas," sighed the youth, "I'm very sorrowful. I had 6 brothers who went away to find brides for themselves, and one for me, but they never came back, so now I'm going to look for them." "Oh, good friend," said the girl, "you need go no farther. Come, sit down, eat and drink, and afterwards I'll tell you all about it." So she gave him food, and when he'd finished his meal, she told him how his brothers had come to the town where she lived with her sisters, how they'd each chosen a bride, and taking himself with them had started for home. She wept as she told how the others were turned to stone, and how she was kept as the old man's bride, and she left out nothing. She even told him the story of her husband's heart. When the young man heard this, he said, "Well, I will go in search for this bird. Maybe I can catch it." "Oh yes, do go," she said, "and then you can set your brothers and my sisters free." And then she hid the young man, because it was late now and her husband would soon be home. The next morning, when the old man had gone out, she prepared some food for the young man and sent him off on his travels, wishing him good luck and success. He walked on and on until he thought it must be time for breakfast, so he opened his knapsack, and he was delighted to find such a store of good things. "Oh, what a feast!" he exclaimed. "Will anyone come and share it?" "Moo!" sounded close behind him, and looking round he saw a great red ox, which said, "I have much pleasure in accepting your kind invitation." "Oh, I'm delighted to see you. Pray help yourself. All I have is at your service," said the friendly young man, and the ox lay down comfortably, licking his lips, and he had a hearty meal. "Well, many thanks to you," said the animal as it rose up, "and when you are in danger or necessity, call me, even if only by a thought." And it disappeared among the bushes. The young man packed up all the food that was left, and he wandered on until it was midday. And then he laid the cloth on the ground and he spread out his food, saying at the same time, "Dinner's ready. Anyone that wishes to share it is quite welcome." And then there was a great rustling in the undergrowth, and out ran a wild boar grunting, "Oof, oof, oof. Someone said dinner was ready. Was it you? And did you mean me to come?" "Oh, by all means, help yourself to what I have," said the young traveller, and the two enjoyed their meal together. And afterwards the boar got up, saying, "Oh, thank you. Whatever you need, you must quickly call for me." And he rolled off. And for a long time the youth walked on. By evening he was miles away. He felt hungry again, and having still some provisions left, thought he'd better have his supper. And when it was all spread out, he cried, as before, "Anyone who cares to share my meal is quite welcome. Anyone?" And then he heard a sound overhead like the flapping of wings, and a shadow was cast upon the ground, and then a huge griffin appeared, saying, "I heard someone giving an invitation to eat. Is there anything for me?" "Why not?" said the youth. "Come down and take all you want. There won't be much left after this." So the griffin came down and he ate his fill, saying as he flew away, "Call me if you need me." Well, what a hurry he was in, the youth said to himself. "He might have been able to direct me to the church, for I'll never find it on my own." So he gathered up his things and he started to walk a little farther before resting, and he'd not gone far at all when all of a sudden he saw the church. He soon came to it, or rather to the wide and deep moat which surrounded it without a single bridge by which to cross. Oh, It was too late to attempt anything now, and besides, the poor youth was very tired, and so he lay down on the ground and he fell asleep. The next morning, when he woke, he began to wish himself over the moat, and the thought occurred to him that if only the red ox were there and thirsty enough to drink up all the water in the moat, he might walk across it. Scarcely had the thought crossed his brain before the ox appeared, and he began to drink up all the water. The grateful youth hastened across as soon as the moat was dry, but then he found it impossible to get through the thick walls and strong iron doors of the church. Oh, I bet that big boar would be of more use here than I am, he thought, and whoosh! The wild boar came, and he began to push hard against the wall, and he poked out stone after stone until he had made a large hole that was big enough to let a man go through. The young man ran into the church and saw the bird flying about, but he couldn't catch it. "Oh," he exclaimed, "if only the griffin were here, he would soon catch it." And at these words the griffin appeared and seized the bird and gave it to the youth, who carried it off very carefully while the griffin flew away. The young man hurried back as fast as possible and reached the cottage before evening. He told his story to the little bride, who, after giving him some food and drink, hid him with his bird beneath the bed. Presently the old man came home, and he complained of feeling ill. Nothing, he said, would go well with him any more. His heart bird had been caught. Well, the youth under the bed heard this, and he thought, this old fellow has done me no particular harm, but then he has bewitched my brothers and their brides, and he has kept my bride to himself, and that is certainly bad enough. So he started to pinch the bird, and the old man cried, "Oh, oh, I feel death gripping me, child. I am dying." And with these words, he fell fainting from his chair, and as the youth squeezed the bird to death, the old man died too. Out crept the young man from under the bed, and the girl took the magic wand, which she found where the old man had told her, and, touching the 12 grey stones, transformed them at once into the 6 brothers and their brides. And then there was great joy and dancing and embracing, and there lay the old man quite dead, and no magic wand could restore him to life, even if they had wished it. After that they all went away, and they all got married, and they lived many years happily together. But being turned into stone had taught the boys a lesson, and after that they at least did some of their housework. See you next time.